All right, what's up, everybody? So today we are taking a look at this article here. This is from the December 1985 issue of Soldier of Fortune magazine with the Green Beret cutler Al Mar. And this photo, the cover here, is of the knives of his first catalog in 1979. Now, in this article, they talk about a few things like survival knives, battle blade knives for the military personnel, and knives for civilians as well. And I just want to chat about, some of the things that I highlighted in this article, literally highlighted, you can see there, of what Mr. Marr, one of the greatest knife designers of all time, had to say about knives. So let's start it off on the importance of a knife in survival. Anyone that buys a survival knife and believes that he indeed will survive any situation because of the knife is really buying his own ticket. So even though I have some great survival knives, if I really trust that, only that knife is going to help me live through the shit hits the fan situation types things, I've got another thing coming. Now, Al Mar was a Green Beret, Special Forces soldier. He is of Chinese descent, and he did some Special Forces work over in Vietnam before the war was a full-fledged war, when the Green Berets were military advisors. I have no idea what he did over there. I don't know if many people alive would know what he did out there. If you do, let me know, because I'm curious. Now, he also held a bachelor's and master's degree in industrial design, which really helped with his knife design. And after, his college and special forces work, he went to work for Gerber Knives, who were making great knives back in the 60s and 70s when Al Mar was their chief of design. All right. Gerber had a very famous knife that a lot of people used in the Vietnam War called the Mark II dagger. Was it a Mark II? Mark I? I think it was a Mark II, the long dagger. Now, Al Mar didn't design that, but he added to the design, which later became the standard production from Gerber, the serrations on the sides of that knife. And he did design the smaller Mark I boot dagger for Gerber, as well as, whatever they were putting out at the time. Now, they are going to go through some questions in this article that I mentioned before. Like, what knife should the average combat armed soldier have that would have best accomplished his task in the field? And what type should the elite trooper, like the Special Forces, the SEALs, the Force Recons, the Green Berets, have? What about the civilian? What kind of blade does he need? And lastly, what does Al Mar think of the current craze, remember this is 1985, of hollow-handled survival knives? So let's really dive in here. So the everyday soldier, combat arms MOS, should not limit himself to one knife. He really needs two. One should be a multi-blade folder or a lockback knife. The other should be a battle blade with a blade length no shorter than 4.5 inches and no longer than 8. So, Al Mar recommended a multi-blade folding knife, so perhaps something like a Case Stockman or something. that you can take to combat, or like a Swiss Army knife, maybe the kind of classic. I don't have one of these to show you, but like the classic military folder or Boy Scout type knife that has a knife, a can opener, and bottle opener, screwdriver type of deal. Those were military issue. Maybe Al had one. He probably did. And battle blade, 4.5 to 8 inches. So something like a K-bar, those types of knives. So let's move on to what about the Spec Ops guys, like Al was. The Special Operations Trooper should create his own war chest of edged tools. He will need a good blade, like the multi-blade folder or a lockback. And he mentioned the lockback in the Everyday Soldier as well, and he created a great one. This is one of Almar's original designs. This is what he called the Eagle. He had a whole series of birds of prey knives. This is the largest. This is a 4-inch blade here. He originally released them with a yellow micarta right here. This is a honey jigged bone. And this is osate steel. The first few years of his catalog, they were in a different steel that you don't really see anymore. It started with an R. It's not around anymore. It was like a precursor to VG10. So it was decent steel if you get one of the really early Almar knives. But a lot of people of this era who were tactically minded really liked the Eagle knife. Now, let's move on. So, they may, we're talking, they want a whole war chest full of edged knives. They may also want some inexpensive throwaway knives. So, something maybe not like the Ozark Trails, but maybe you might want something a little better than that. Maybe at least a Rough Rider or something, blade like that. And because that he may need to leave some behind while on a mission. A fighting knife may be required also. I had to ask Almar, this is the author of the article speaking, not me, what he considered the difference between a fighting knife and a battle blade. For Almar, the fighter is a full double-edged style knife. So a dagger, such as, this deal here. This is a fighting knife by definition of Mr. Almar. And he made some of these for his catalog. And a battle blade is a heavy duty weapon that is single-edged with the false edge sharpened no farther back from the point than 1/2 the length of the blade. It must have a flat back to it so that you can apply pressure to the blade when bearing down to cut something. And the blade length must be no shorter than 4.5 inches, no longer than 8. The blade should have a full tang, or at least 1/3 length tang that is well anchored into the handle. So something like this would be a great battle blade. This is the Sag Bowie. Flat top. And meaning probably not a sawback knife, which we kind of hinted at the beginning of the hollow handle knives that were popular in the 80s. So you can cut down on it, and you know, that was in his size range. That was about 6.5 inches. Something like a SOG Seal Pup. This is a little under 5 inches. That would qualify as a battle blade. And I didn't bring it down to film this video, but a Randall knife, a great battle blade, and he calls out one later in this article. He mentioned the sharpened false edge. Randall does that on all of their knives. Now, the civilian. What should folks like me, and maybe you, probably you too, carry? The civilian must decide what he wants a knife for. What is his environment? How much can he spend? Is he going to learn how to use his fighter or battle blade? It's not how much you own, but in what you know about your choice and how it works for you. Because you can spend so much and get so little. Especially in today's market, you sure can spend a lot and get so little. Now, we'll touch on the hollow handle knives here. Al believes the hollow handle survivors are a compromise. Not all use a full pinned or anchored spot weld tang. They are prone towards breaking. The handle material is also a problem because most of them use metal for their handles. When metal gets either hot or very cold, then you have a problem holding on to the knife. And saw teeth get Almar going too. He goes on to say, it requires too much energy to saw through something using the teeth provided on any of those survival knives. Since most of the knives of this type have heavy blades, just think of Rambo's knife, that are heavy enough to cut or hack through the same object with less energy expended. And the teeth were on all these reproductions because Rambo's knife had teeth. But never in the movie do you see him saw through anything. The teeth may just be there to make an intimidating appearance. And about the hollow handle itself. He goes on to say, knife storage in those handles is a last ditch in nature. Any good survivalist will have a go bag packed with all the basic requirements for survival. Okay? So if you're totally dependent on the little thing of tubular stuff that's in your hollow handle survival knife, good luck to you. All right? So the article goes on. The author asks Almar if he would ever come out with a hollow handle survival knife. And history will tell us that he did. He did come out with a hollow handle survival knife. You can look them up. They're pretty cool looking. Now, the author asked Almar what his personal choices would be in the categories of knives discussed. For a battle blade, I'd take our Shiva, that was one of Almar's models, or the Randall Model 14. I got one of those. In the fighter class, it would be either the Fang 1 or 2, which are Almar's dagger designs, or of course, the Applegate, meaning the Applegate Fairbairn design dagger, fighting knife, as he calls it. And Almar produced some of those as well. In the folder category, I like the newest addition to our line, the Airweight. And you can kind of see, picture that knife there, sort of. It's a little dark. But it's like it's a synthetic handle, and I've seen some online that had an ATS 34 blade steel, about 3 1/4, 3 3/8 inches long, I believe the specs said for that knife. In the survival arena, Almar reaches for the Sear, which is this knife here, a large folding knife, or Randall's Model 18. This is the Almar Sear. See that tip? I've shown this in a couple different videos lately. And Randall's Model 18 is a hollow-handled knife designed by Randall Knives, Vietnam War era, that also has saw teeth on the top. It was made for people who rode an aircraft to escape a downed aircraft. Not really meant for sawing wood. And I go on to talk about the Sear knife, the qualities it has that make it a good survivor knife. This is peeling up a little bit. Is that supposed to? I digress. Back to the article. All right, so Almar was approached by Colonel Nick Rowe from Army Special Forces, founded the Sear School, and they worked up some drawings and negotiations. The Sear knife was born. It makes it the only knife developed for Special Forces. And Al gave credit to Colonel Rowe for being really the father of this knife. It's a large front lock folder, boasts a 4.5-inch blade. It's a single edge with a false edge, full third back from the point of the blade. Now, the blade is of a lower Rockwell hardness so that it may be honed on nearly anything found in the field, including a rough rock. So just think about that. Developed at low Rockwell hardness, which is kind of the opposite of what trends in today's knife market here, like near 40 years after this article was written. And the author makes this statement here: the Sear is the best thing on the market for the serious individual who requires a knife that can double as a field tool and or combat weapon should things get rough out there. Form and function is what Almar's knife is. And then they go in to a little more Q&A in this article. What steel is the optimum? Al says there's no single optimum steel. But if he had to use one steel available today in the industry, it would be 440A. The steel holds a good edge, and in a battle blade, you do not want the high Rockwell hardness. You want to be able to sharpen it in the field. A Rockwell hardness in the low to middle 50s, like 53 to 55, on the Rockwell tester is where you want the blade to come out at. With a knife of this steel and at that Rockwell, a man could be put into a trying environment and still have a working tool for a long time. So just think about that statement from the great Almar in terms of today's blade market. Nobody is going to say, hey, give me that 440A steel knife at 54 Rockwell. It's interesting how times have changed, but are you still going to take Al Marr's words to heart on your survival or battle blade? Very, very interesting. They go into sharpening a little bit, guards. It's a really great article, but I think I really wanted to just talk about those points on the survival knife and battle blade, that steel and Rockwell hardness. You know, it is something that you'll hear a lot of, like hardcore outdoorsmen and hunters say, at least I do when I watch videos here on YouTube about knives, that they all want something that's decent enough but can be sharpened very easily in the field. I mean, nobody is taking our work sharp precision adjust, you know, on their, we'll use a fancy bushcraft, or no one's stuck in that in their haversack when they're out on a hunting trip. They're gonna have a little sharpening stone. Maybe you just take something like this with you out into the field. You want to be able to get an edge back on that knife when you're out and about. So Al Marr, Blade Magazine Hall of Fame kind of guy. He mentioned his Fang daggers. This is the Fang 1 right here. It's not a big knife. It's like a boot dagger is what he really designed it for. So there you have it, guys. A conversation with Al Marr. Take it easy. We'll see you on the next video.